Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Dr. Jan Fortman with Relationship Matters TV. I hope everyone is having a beautiful morning, afternoon, or evening. This show today is a very, very, very important show that I thought I would really bring to you. And it's because of what I've been hearing on the news, on special reports, what I've been reading, and it's all about mental health, especially the mental health challenges that teenage girls have. And what I wanted to do today was to bring on an expert to give us some insights into what's happening. What is happening? So I'm going to bring to you a young lady who has a beautiful first name. Beautiful first name. I will bring to you Janice Williams. I love your name.
Hi,
It's so
Dr.
beautiful.
How are you? I agree. Yours
I
too.
I'm great. How are you?
I am just fine. Just fine. Blessed. So blessed.
And you know what? I have to tell people this. We met about a year ago on the Soul Train cruise, and we instantly connected. And we saw each other just a couple of weeks ago again on the Soul Train cruise. And we
Woo-hoo.
connected and hung out. And she made me spend money when we wait. Oh, yeah, I know I should say that because you're gonna say, yeah, that's you're no, no, she didn't. She didn't make me spend money when we went on the excursion. I made her spend money because I was
Mhm.
spending money, and I'm like, I don't want to be by myself. But
Mhm.
anyway, but anyway, Janice, you are a licensed mental health clinician. Tell us about that.
Wow.
What is a licensed mental health clinician?
Okay. First, let me say what a joy it is, what a blessing it is that we met, that we connected. You are amazing, and it is my honor and pleasure to be on your show. That's from the heart.
Thank
So, I'm a licensed mental health clinician. If you think about psychiatrists treating diseases of the mind, if you think about psychologists testing your cognition and your emotional functions, think about licensed clinicians, mental health professionals actually doing behavioral therapy. We're the ones that help you learn to identify the strengths that you need to accurately assess a problem, develop treatment, change your behavior. Therapy is how you change your life, not taking a pill, not retreating, but looking at your life and assessing what it is that you want, what it is that you need, and being empowered to believe that you can get those things. So that's what licensed clinicians do. We are behavioral change agents. The word therapy means change.
Okay, all right. And I know you work, do you mainly work with women or girls, or do you, who do you work with?
Yeah, Janice, I'm a generalist. I'm in my 49th year, but let's say 46 years as a clinician. Yeah, I started very young, right?
When you were a teenager?
The state of Ohio wouldn't let me do that. I had to complete 6 years. But
Okay.
I work with all ages. I've worked extensively with youth. I was a school social worker for about 20 years. I retired from Cleveland schools. I've been in private practice since 1986. I have always worked with all populations. I don't limit myself to just one population. I work with children and families. I work with seniors. My specialties are adoption, foster care, mental health. And I also worked in the criminal justice system. So I'm a bit of a generalist. I don't see myself limited. The human experience requires that we address all stages of life, and it's good for me too. It prevents burnout.
Okay. Okay. So, the topic, as I said at the beginning of this show, it's been all on the news, all kinds of special reports, um, and it's all about teenage girls. And I was surprised at this. It's something that, but before we go into that, um, this is, wait a minute, I just want to, when you were talking about mental health and um, all ages, Ruby Jordan, her name is Anita,
Hmm.
said not taking a pill is the key.
She's so right.
Yeah, not taking that pill is the
She's so
key.
right.
And I have to just have to acknowledge someone, Jacqueline Rogers, who is probably the next I don't know why she's not running to be president, but I
Oh,
always told
really?
her
Hi,
that she would make the president. That's
wow.
right, Jackie. I put you right out there. But
Okay.
anyway, so
Do
so let's talk about this. This is something really, really
it.
serious. And it was something that I just really didn't know that teenage, evidently it's an epidemic
Yes.
about teenage girls,
Yes.
uh, about them considering suicide, about their mental health challenges. So let's talk about that.
Sure.
Tell me about what is it that you are seeing?
Okay, let me start off by saying this is not a new problem at all, but this is a problem that has escalated with the times. As times change and the advent of social media. But this is certainly not new. Dr. Fortman, if you think about the fact that adolescence is a challenging time for all of us, particularly for girls. And it's not that long ago. I'm sure you can think back to being a teenager. We still remember that. That age group, you're really challenged. Your friends are important to you. What other people think is very important to you. How you interact with others, whether or not you have friends, whether or not if you're accepted, whether or not you have peer pressure, what's your status at home. Adolescence by itself is complex and complicated. Now enter and factor in all the advances that had pluses but had serious minuses as well. So, you and I, if you don't mind, came from an era where we didn't have social media. So, if one person said to you, I don't like that girl, and somebody else said, I don't like her either, if they told you, you knew about it, you could either respond or you could choose to ignore it. With social media, you can put on your page, your Instagram, your Facebook, your TikTok, whatever. You can create a meme about someone. They're ugly, they're stupid. As the kids like to say, they're a hoe. You can make any slanderous, negative comment that you want and disperse it among thousands. Imagine if, as an adolescent girl, you tell a secret to your friend and you think that secret is safe. You find out that the whole community knows, people all over knows, and they have the capacity to contact you and tell you what they think about you. And don't forget, not everybody is healthy. There are people who specialize in bullying and tearing other people down. I would say about 8 years ago, so I've been in private practice the past 37 years. I remember having a 12-year-old girl who was suicidal. And when her parents brought her in, I'm trying to explore why, what's going on. They seem loving. She seemed to have a good relationship. Well, back then, there was a website called Musically. And my granddaughter just informed me that Musically is now TikTok. See, I would not know this without an 11-year-old granddaughter. I didn't know this. But at that time, this 11-year-old girl was interested in this site called Musically. And musically was supposedly benign. You could create songs and music and you share your work with others. What's wrong with that? Well, this 12-year-old created songs and got back hateful responses. You're ugly, your music sucks, you don't have any talent. And it just went on and on. And she started noticing that the negative comments far outweighed the positives, that people who actually had the intention of being hurtful were now targeting her, and she couldn't stop reading, she couldn't stop looking at it. And all of this just combined with the self esteem issues that young girls have anyway about being accepted. Am I pretty? Am I smart? Do I have friends? Do I fit in? Am I weird? Combine all of that now with a barrage of negativity, hate, and she decided she didn't want to live.
Oh,
So if you can see how generations ago our struggles with our self esteem, with peer contact, with relationships, they were on a micro level. But now, because of the internet, because of these social platforms, everything is magnified, everything is worse exponentially. So now you have these girls who are very vulnerable to people who may not have good intentions, people who may have pathologies, people who are unhappy and want to hurt someone. And nothing is private anymore. So that's a whole nother level. In addition to the other things that girls struggle with. And there are other things. We struggle with body image. You know, am I pretty? Am I not pretty? Somebody said I'm ugly. Somebody said I need braces. Your hair fell out. You gained weight. You lost weight. We body shame. We compare. We have parents who, oh, my one child is very slim. My other child is overweight. My one child is smart. Oh, this one, she's struggling. So these stressors come from a multitude of avenues. They come from peers, they come from family, and they come from within. We look and think, oh, my nose is too big. Oh, my hair is too stringy. We do these things, but it's now compounded because of the access to this wider, broader community that may not be positive, often is not.
so really, what I hear you saying, and let me know if I'm being correct, that social media has exacerbated this.
Exactly. You are so right. It did not create it, but it
Okay,
exacerbated it. Absolutely.
so now you said this is not anything new,
No.
uh, but look, when you said think about when we were teenagers, I had to
Hmm.
go way, way,
Yes.
way, 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 way
Nah.
back. and 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 I hear what you say, because when I was a teenager, I was 5'9".
Oh, wow.
I weighed 97 pounds.
Okay.
And they called me Sticks.
Of course.
I hated it. I mean, now I wish someone would call me Sticks. Thank
You
you.
still got it, girl. You still got it.
I would say thank you. But back then, it was something that really, really messed with my self
Of
esteem.
course. Of
But
course.
it was just in my little local community, or I should say in my little group.
Absolutely.
you know and it didn't go any further. So I can understand when, like you say, it's on social media. And as Ruby Jones, Anita said, it never goes away.
Right.
And so you
Right.
have these young ladies who are more and more and more just, they're devastated,
Yes.
because, like you say, there are people out there who just really want to cause harm.
Absolutely. That is
So
the
do
truth.
you think that bullying also plays a huge role in this also?
It's absolutely cyberbullying. Cyberbullying as defined as using, the internet to spread hate and threaten and defame and disparage. Absolutely. That is cyberbullying. So it's not necessarily, I'm going to fight you, I'm going to kill you, but you're ugly, you're stupid, nobody likes you. Why don't you just die? Nobody wants you. That's cyberbullying. Anything that attacks your self esteem, your self worth.
So now, um, when I know you work with young ladies, and I wanted you on because I know you work with girls, and you did say about the one young lady who wanted
Yeah.
to commit suicide. Do you has your client base increased as far as these, as far as teenage girls are concerned, or
Yeah.
parents of teenage girls?
Yeah.
Has it really increased?
Yes, what I would say is there's been a need for a very long time. What has increased, Dr. Fortman, is the nature of the referrals. I'm getting more and more referrals saying my daughter is anxious, my daughter is depressed, and the anxiety and the depression are forerunners to suicidal ideation if there's no intervention. But I need to go back and tell you the ending of that situation where the parents brought that child in. I think you're going to be surprised. Um, so when I interview the parents, which I always do, I always spend actually more time with the parents than the actual child after I get to know them, because I understand that most of these issues originate at home. Even if we're talking about her response to cyberbullying, I want to know how she's being parented, what has been instilled in her in terms of resilience and how you deal with the opinions of others. So we made some recommendations. And one of the recommendations that I made was that at 12 years old, she really didn't need to be on social media. And her family resisted. My recommendation was that she needed to be involved in other activities, sports, creative arts, since she liked music, playing a musical instrument, but really curtailing or eliminating social media. Her parents refused. They said that was something that all of her friends were doing, and I never heard from them again.
And so you really don't know
That's it.
what
I,
happened.
I don't think the outcome was good because they said that was not an option that they were willing to entertain because all of her friends were on social media.
Oh my goodness.
I don't think it was a good
Yeah,
outcome.
no, but it was because I
Great.
wanted to ask you about parents, but Jacqueline Rogers says then there's the poison of the entertainment
Absolutely.
industry. How do
Absolutely.
you think that impacts them? And
Oh,
what is it
absolutely.
about the entertainment industry that you see that's
Absolutely.
influencing these young ladies?
Absolutely. So there was a time when your role models and your imagery as to who you were was pretty much defined by your nuclear family. Your mom, your dad, your grandparents, your big sister, your aunties. As that influence decreases, the more time that you spend with social media, with television, images from the entertainment industry, that starts shaping your role models, your imagery. And right now, you know that there are a lot of images that are not positive for our young people. There are a lot of images that promote early sexualization of our girls. That is huge. Um, the whole idea of twerking. You and I know because we come from an era where if we been over and started gyrating our behinds, we would be gyrating a little bit differently once a belt or a switch hit our behind. That twerking would take on a whole new meaning. But just the idea that our young girls are spending hours watching scantily clad people who are pushing their sexuality, who are in compromising positions and being applauded by larger society as being sexy. This is fine. Show your body, move your thing, do that. Early sexualization of our children is damaging because, first of all, you probably don't have that body that they're twerking and exposing because that body may have been manufactured by whatever injections they had or enhancements or surgeries. So they're not even coveting something that's realistic to be built right now. I think the emphasis is on an 18-inch waist and a 45 behind. Those things aren't even natural. They're exaggerated. So you have young girls talking about getting butt enhancements, bosom enhancement. These are girls, or feeling that maybe they need to starve themselves to get a certain body, or maybe they need to expose themselves. My daughter is a guidance counselor, and she talks about the girls that come to school with inappropriate clothing, sexual comments. Our children are being overexposed, over sexualized. Our girls are caught almost in a culture war that they didn't ask for. And if there's no strong guidance at home, nobody paying attention, nobody countering that message, they can easily get lost in thinking this is acceptable. This is the way I should speak. They're watching reality shows. How good am I at cussing people out? Um, you know, can I get violent? Should I overtalk others? You know, is it all about me? They're getting messages that most of us from decades on were not raised to have. And we don't know where those voices are. Now, this is not everyone, but it's too prominent, it's too pervasive. Young girls are thinking they need to copy those images that they see in videos and rappers and television and the lyrics to music. Their standard is being defined by, as Jacqueline said, a poison industry, in my view.
And as far as parents, and I hear it, as far as parents are concerned, um, when you're dealing, I know you told us about the one young lady whose parents whose parents said, no, they weren't going to take her off of social media. But what are some of the signs that parents, teachers, grandparents, what are some of the signs that we see? Because when I read this survey and I read this research, and then they've really been talking about it on television,
Yeah.
and newspapers and whatever. It's like, okay, how if let's say I have a neighbor who has a teenage girl,
Mm-hmm.
so how would I know? How would her mother know if she's under this pressure? Or you know what I mean? Because a lot of times, you think of yourself as a teenager and you hide stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
you hide stuff. Oh no, I'm fine. Oh no, I mean, my mother didn't know that certain places when I was a teenager I didn't want to go.
All of us.
I didn't want them to call me sticks, and all the boys were dancing and paying attention with the girls that are shapely,
Right.
and all that. Here I am a stick.
Yes. Now
you
they
know,
want to be like you. Those same girls, where are they?
and then back then also, uh, because I was dark brown skin.
Yes, let's talk about
And so the boys were paying attention to the light brown skinned girls,
absolutely. That's still
but I hid all of that. You know what I mean? So how would I, as a mom or grandmother or a neighbor, what is it that I should look for?
okay. Well, let's go back. Let's go back to basics. So here's the thing. So when we think about social media and the influence of the industry, the person that has the most access to young girls, the people who have the greater access are family. The first thing we should do before we go looking for signs is make sure that we have a real family unit. We have some real communication. Everybody's busy. Today, a lot of parents work more than one job. Children have a variety of activities. We want to make sure that we have a check in point for our children, that there's never a day or time that goes by where you haven't established Hey, what was your day like? If it's in the car, if it's at night before they go to bed, but just to check in daily. Hey, how was your day? So some of the obvious signs, because there's signs that are overt and there's signs that are more covert because kids are good at hiding. So some of the obvious signs might be withdrawing, but you got to consider the type of child that you have. So if you have a quiet child and they're not talking much, that may not be a red flag for you. So you're going to look for things like come home from school and they go straight in their room and they close the door, which a lot of kids want to do. Here's the thing, if that door is closed the entire evening into the night, somebody needs to be knocking on that door saying, hey, come tell me what's up, or come help me fix dinner, or let's go shopping. If you leave them to their own devices, that door, and I know children who've told me they go home from school, they close that door, and they don't emerge till the next day. That is a problem. A parent should definitely, you intervene, not in a threatening way. What are you doing in there? Open that door. But hey, come out. Need you to help me peel these potatoes, or can you help me do something on the computer because you're better at it than I? Or come watch something with me. Parents should make the effort to engage their kids, even if it takes a little nudging. If that child refuses to engage, that's a huge red flag. If they absolutely refuse, because that could be a sign that something else is going on, like substance abuse, or perhaps they've been sexually assaulted and they're ashamed. You need to make sure that you're engaging with your child every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. That's your check in. Another sign would be change in patterns that you're familiar with. If you know your child typically has a really big appetite, they're hungry all the time, eat all the time. Now they're barely eating anything. You ready for dinner? Oh no, I'm not hungry. Or they're picking at their food. A major change in things that you knew to be true are always red flags. It could be sleep patterns. The child that now is sleeping more, hyposomnia, hypersomnia. They're not sleeping enough. Look for drastic changes. But I think the most reliable thing is actually engaging with your child. Notice if your child seems to be angry more, or more touchy or more irritable. And your response should be, something's going on. I'm always here for you. If it's not me, would you like to talk to your dad, your brother, your uncle, your grandfather, whoever that child has a relationship with? Do not allow them to isolate. If it gets to the point where you can't reach them, they won't open that door, they won't share, that's when you call the professionals like myself. But I would hope if you feel that it's heading in that direction, you would call professional therapists before it gets really bad. If you can't redirect the behavior, then that's the point where you need to involve a professional. Don't wait until it's extreme. Don't wait until they leave the house at 5 and you don't see them till midnight. You know, when they're
Um,
2 hours late, you intervene. Don't wait until it's extreme.
uh, Also, a comment. She says also there are mamas who act like they're on the Bad Girls Club. That's
Yes.
also who they're getting some of those influences from. And she says, as well as my friend who's a kindergarten teacher, and I guess she says she's quitting. I guess because of, and then Jacqueline says, moms trying to be like their daughters instead of their mother.
They are
In other words,
so,
uh, being friends.
they are so
Yeah.
right. Worst mistake we can make. You know, if we're struggling with our identity, if we're struggling with our mental health, suffice it to say that you can expect it's going to affect or impact your child, your daughter. If you're not happy with who you are and you're trying to transform into somebody you saw on the Real Housewives of Atlanta or whatever else people watch, Basketball Wives, I don't know. But if you're not happy with yourself, you can expect a negative impact upon your child. And you absolutely are not their friend. You're their loving parent. And it's
Yeah.
your responsibility to explain the difference because a friend can't tell them when to come in, when not to come in, what they can do, what they can't do. A friend can only suggest. A parent should have the last word. No, you can't stay out till 2, 3 in the morning. I don't care who's parent. That sound familiar? Dr. Fortman, we were
Sure.
raised by women who didn't mind saying, because I said so.
Thank
Now,
you.
we're
Didn't have to give us
we're a
reason.
little more sophisticated. We would explain to our children why. Our parents never did. But the tragedy is when no one is home to know what time you came in. The tragedy is when the child gets home and they don't know where the parent is, or if the parent is coming home, or if the parent is high and they smell marijuana as soon as they walk in. Many of our children are living these lives. They're seeing their mothers being abused by boyfriends, husbands, girlfriends. Too many of our parents are exposing their personal lives to their children. They need not know. They're not your friend. They need not know all the intricacies of your relationships. And don't forget, sexuality is opened up now. So a lot of children are experiencing um, same gender relationships. That's the choice of the parent. But you need to be very careful in how you explain or present, whether it's same gender, different gender, it's still your business. And your business should not be laid bare for your child's consumption. They are still your children. Some things need to be private. I'm not saying you have to lie, but sometimes we're putting too much on our children about our personal lives, and they can't handle that. And it's not fair.
Right. And Gwendolyn Dunbar says there are also the parents who enable their children instead of using corrective measure to make them responsible adults. And they have, I guess, no guidance.
She's absolutely right. All of
Now,
these things are factors,
so go ahead.
all of
Yeah.
them. Hmm.
So now in the LB, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, but the
LGBTQ,
LGBTQ community,
yes.
do you find that there is more stress on the teenage girls in that community?
I think that because society has not made a definite decision that this is acceptable, the numbers are growing, but society has not totally embraced it. There's still areas, there's still people who are not comfortable, and it does add stress because now children have to explain or hide or defend the behaviors of their parents, which isn't fair, but it's the real world. So again, whether it's gender same or gender different, parents should keep elements of their lives private because their children should not have to bear issues that they have no control over.
A question just came in through the text. If mental health services were offered free by the government, then most of our societal ills could be resolved. Do you agree?
Yes and no. Here's the problem: we can offer services, but we can't make you take them. So I would have to lean more towards no, even though I think that's a great thing. But understand, we really, the only way you can make somebody accept therapy is if there's a court order, if they've been adjudicated and the court says you have to go. Other than that, just as that parent that said no, I'm not going to curtail her social media account, so I can't make her do that. So I think that certainly we would be better off if there were more services, there were more available, but we cannot compel people until they've crossed the line with abuse and neglect. That's just the reality. However, I think there are a lot of creative things that we can do. When I was still a part of Cleveland schools as a school social worker, I remember there were programs like what was it called, Project Love, where not just girls, they had a component for boys as well, where they got together and talked about self esteem and they talked about relationships. When I was a school social worker, I ran groups with girls as well as boys to talk about how we deal with conflict, to talk about the challenges of growing up, family issues. So it doesn't have to be mental illness focused as much as mental health focused. Anything that helps people to feel good about themselves, to develop good coping skills, to know how to face life without being overly anxious, without feeling as if they're inadequate. Anything that helps build self esteem and equips young people, young girls, to manage their lives in a healthy way is going to be productive.
So, you know, I'm still going back to uh, the statistics that I read. Now, what I'm wondering is, we're, now, we have surveys, we have research, we publish things, but what I'm wondering is, before social media, was this still prevalent? I know you said that, it's not anything new, but was it still prevalent? But it just was not reported. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Uh, it was hush hush. Do you agree with that, or do you think? I know you said social media,
yeah,
and then we talked about the uh, entertainment industry, and
right.
some did bring up in the chat the pornography
Oh,
in,
absolutely.
you know, but so is it more rampant now, or is it just reported
Yeah.
more?
I would say it's more rampant because society has relaxed so many rules. When I was growing up, you never saw a couple in the same bed. I remember watching, what was it, I Love Lucy? They had separate beds. Now, at any time of the day, you don't have to have cable on the networks. You can see sex acts. Now there are shows. I remember when I stopped watching Empire because there was an episode where, what was her name, Cookie, lifted her
Yeah.
dress, literally showed her behind, literally, physically, in a boardroom. So I think things have gotten worse. Not that things haven't always been bad, but now it's acceptable to show everything. Now there are more mediums. Back in the day, if you were curious, you could find your parents' Playboy magazines or whatever. Now you don't need to do that. It is all in your face. I remember going to a public library some years ago and I'm researching something and it had nothing to do with sex. Oh my goodness, all of a sudden pornography filled the entire computer. And I was outraged. I'm an adult. I'm thinking, all these children here, if this just happened to me. So I went to the librarian thinking she'd be upset. And she says, oh, those are just pop ups. I said, I know what they are. I'm talking about the fact that I was just assaulted with graphic pornography, and you have a library full of children here. She said, there's nothing we can do about that. This was Cleveland Public Library. So I didn't accept that. And I started calling suburban libraries. I called Strongsville, which is an upscale white community in our area. They told me they had filters for pop ups. So I'm noticing that where you are has a lot to do with your access. So to answer your question, I know it's worse because they have access to bad things have always happened, but now it's in our children's faces. It's very hard to protect them from it. Again, this was a pop up that they're saying they can do nothing about. And when I tell you it was explicit and graphic, so things are worse because we've removed the filters, we've opened up the portals, and nobody's checking and nobody's really protecting our children. To me, that makes it much worse.
Wow. So if you're, let's say when you said that you look at your children, or especially your daughters, because that's what we're talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah,
and you see these changes,
right.
and as a mother, trying to deal with the changes or trying to get the child to open up. But what if you cannot get your child to open up to you? And and you said, call in a professional.
Right.
What professionals are you talking
Okay.
about?
Sure.
How do
So,
you, and then,
how do
uh,
you access them?
yeah, how do you access? And then the third part is, when your daughter says, I don't need to go, I don't want to go, nothing
Absolutely.
wrong with me.
Absolutely. So, since the Obama administration, President Obama put millions of dollars into mental health services in schools. The problem is that state by state, governors had the latitude to decide whether or not they wanted to use those dollars for mental health. And I'm sure everybody has heard about what happened in Mississippi with the Mississippi governors giving a football player, Brett Favre, I believe, $5 million or more, diverting funds that were for mental health to whatever they wanted. So the federal government has poured dollars into mental health, but when it gets to the governor's office and then sometimes to the counties, here in Cuyahoga County, we seem to get the smallest share, even though we have the largest number of families and children in need. So I say that to say that many schools have mental health services in place, but the problem is they're limited and the quality is not always there. So there are two routes you can go. If you have a good pediatrician, hopefully your child has a good pediatrician. That might be one place that you can start and asking your pediatrician for a referral for mental health services, because that way you can be assured that your network, your insurance will cover it, because these services may or may not be free. A lot of times when they're free, there's an income requirement. So if you're somewhere in the middle, you may not be eligible for free mental health services, um, and higher. So one option is to start with your pediatrician, start with your healthcare network, and find out what mental health services do you qualify for. The other, of course, is checking with your school to find out if your school has mental health services. But let's be clear, your school may have mental health services, but if it's an outside agency, they may have their own criteria as to what health plans they accept. When I retired as a school social worker, I protested social workers being retired. We were laid off, which led to retirement. It was not my decision. The school district decided that it would be cheaper to bring in local mental health agencies because they wouldn't have to pay us. When they did that, now they made children subject to the qualifications of that mental health agency. As a school employee, I could service everybody. Whether you had insurance, didn't have insurance, it didn't matter. Once you privatize things, once you hand them over to agencies, they accept Aetna, but they don't accept Blue Cross. This, that, the criteria, many children are left out. And there's also something to be said about the quality. So look at your schools, talk to your pediatricians. Go through your healthcare network. Now, you mentioned the second part. What if your child says, I don't want to go? So if you tell your child to stay in and it's 3 in the morning and they say, I don't want to stay in, are you going to open the door? Not everything is what children want. And that's where we've kind of changed with parenting. That's where the conversation comes. I'm so glad you told me how you feel about that. I'll try to go with you, but we're getting help. This is not negotiable. When we ask our children what they want, don't be angry when they tell you. Sometimes it's what do you need? And then we'll work out how we respond to what you need.
Now, going down by us, how do you cope when you see your children are influenced more by their peers than you? And I guess especially in a negative,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
as a teenager, yes, yeah, but
Be the parent and cut back access to those peers. Hopefully, you have already asserted yourself as a parent. I can remember clearly hearing things like, oh, I don't want you hanging with that person. And of course, that's the person you want to hang with.
Right.
What's funny to me is that parents are always telling me about the child that's the bad influence on their child, and sometimes their child is the bad influence. But the bottom line is you have to assert yourself, but be proactive. Know who their friends are ahead of time. In the days when I was raising my children, I got to know their parents. My dearest friends today, I met because they were the parents of the children my kids wanted to play with. So if they wanted to go over there, I wanted to go too. I want to meet mama. I want to meet dad. If my child's spending time over there, to their horror, I would meet them. And we became friends or we didn't. So,
Yeah.
parents, be proactive. Don't wait until after the fact. If you know your daughter's rushing off the house to meet with Kiana every Saturday afternoon, it might be time for maybe for you to invite Kiana over, or maybe for you to call up Kiana's mom and, hey, let's set up a play date or get together. You need to know before the fact. It's a lot harder when you try to undo something that's already done.
Okay, another question came in. How does mental health play a factor in teenage girls being drawn to use illicit drugs as an escape?
So I like the way they ended that question. So there's two things about substance abuse with girls, with young teenagers, with adults. There are some people who recreationally wanting to fit in, peer influence. Everybody's getting high. I'm gonna try it. That's one group. Then there's another group. I'm being sexually abused at home. My mother don't talk to me. She's very busy. She's got 3, 4 degrees. She's speaking here. She's traveling there. See, it's not always poor. It's not always socioeconomic class. Anybody can be less than a desirable parent. So what happens is the young girl who's not getting her emotional needs met at home may look for escape. So the route can be different. The route can be peer pressure. The route can be I'm miserable. I don't know what to do. I need to escape. And then there are children who are now being forced into substance abuse. It goes hand in hand with sex trafficking. There are children who are being introduced to drugs, to marijuana, to alcohol by adults who seek to take advantage. So there are a lot of roads to the use of illicit drugs, substances, but the strongest barrier is a really, really good relationship with your child, where you start very early talking about, one day somebody's going to offer you a drink. One day somebody's going to offer you a joint. How do you think you'd handle that? Let's talk about it. I remember, I think I still have it, a little pamphlet that I bought to talk with my kids about. Let's talk about drugs. Let's talk about alcohol. They were still in elementary school. Let's talk about it. So you don't wait until the problem has already begun. You start early. You build a relationship with your children where you say, there are things out here that can hurt you, and you are precious to me. So we're going to talk about why not right now. We're not going to wait until somebody offers you your first joint. And the other piece of it is don't be a do as I say, not what I do parent. If they see you getting high, they're going to want to try it. Don't fool yourself. Your days are numbered. If they see you drinking all the time and you say, don't drink, they've probably already been in your bottle. They know where your stash is. You can't be hypocritical.
And I agree with that, uh, because you can hear teenagers say, "Well, you do it,"
Absolutely.
and so it on one hand it's like, well, that's an adult that's doing that, but you're right. If it's a bad habit or
Right.
something that you feel is really going to be detrimental to your child, then don't do it in front of them. You
Exactly.
get high, don't get
Ex-
high in front of your kid.
Exactly. Keep
You know
your
what I'm saying.
private life separate
Keep
from your children.
keep
They
your
deserve that.
keep
They
your
deserve that.
now. There was a question here. Let me find. Oh, here it is. Um, Let me find it. And it's a very important question. How can we get this conversation to a broader audience that needs to hear and benefit? Because, as I said earlier, we're finding out that it is an epidemic. We're
Absolutely.
losing our young girls. We're
Absolutely.
losing our teenage girls.
Absolutely. And it's not always reported. Um, when social workers in Cleveland, I was the last one that was really kind of forced to retire because we were laid off. That next year, Cleveland had the dubious distinction of becoming number one in the country, not Chicago, where you are, not Washington, D.C., not New York, not LA. Cleveland was number one in suicides of children under the age of 17. I don't remember exactly what percentage were girls, but to answer Nancy's question, we have to use all platforms that are available to us. That's our churches, that's our schools, that's our sororities and fraternities, community groups, that's our television platforms, that's talking to our neighbors, talking to our cousins, talking to our aunts, our grandparents. It really bothers me when someone says, "Well, I'm not going to get involved because it's not my place." We really are our brothers and sisters keepers. It is our place. This is humanity. And here's the scary part: when these children are contemplating suicide, they're on social media talking about it. There's a phenomenon, kind of a group hysteria, where children have made suicide pacts. One child might say, "I'm thinking about killing myself." And other children chime in, "Well, why? How?" "Well, because my mother doesn't love me, or my father left, or whatever." And these children start converging on this topic. Then they start sharing ideas. Then one person decides to do it, or they make a pact, or they do these stupid challenges on TikTok. You've heard about that. So, the way we get this to broader audiences is in every aspect of our lives, we promote mental health. Unless you live in a silo, you're involved in groups, you know people. I've been criticized for using my Facebook platform to talk about mental health, to talk about these issues. And I say, this is what I do. Just today, I don't know if I was thinking about your show, I was moved to write a piece about what are we doing in the face of all these gun shootings, all these mass shootings? What are we doing to encourage not only gun laws, but teaching our kids not to hate each other, teaching our children, having conversations about resolving conflict without violence. The platform is every interaction that we have with each other. You know, when we're on the cruise, we discuss these things. The subject comes up. There's never a bad time to talk about how we can support and encourage our mental health and positive mental health interactions. There's never a bad time. So the answer is everything at our disposal.
Thank you so much. Uh, You know, I didn't even go to commercial.
Because I talk so
Was
much.
gonna say, Dr. Jan, because this was just so important. Because I stopped in my tracks when I saw the stats, and
Yeah.
these stats were 2021 and 2022, and when it said the percentage of teenage girls that were having
Three
these
out of
mental,
five, 3 out of 5 have
yeah,
reported anxiety and depression.
yes, yes,
That's
and
more than
and
half.
yes, and and contemplating suicide. And you're right. We have to do everything in our power, everything, to address this situation. And as like you said, churches, schools,
Social
social
group,
organizations, what
sport.
because this is these young ladies, these girls are our future.
Exactly. And one other thing I'd like to add, um, I think we should not feel that we're held hostage by the images that the media promotes. I guess it didn't do any good. I don't know, but I remember when my children were adolescents writing Procter and Gamble. I don't like that ad that you had on TV. I think that was sexually inappropriate. I remember, you know about Macy's. You and I went to Macy's in Puerto Rico, did we not?
Yes, we did.
Macy's used to be Kaufman's here in Cleveland for a while. They started off the May Company, then they were Kaufman's. I remember my daughter being under 12. We went to get school clothes, and there was this sign, a picture at the girls' department with all these really short skirts with bootylicious on the back. And the young lady on the ad had a skirt on well above, almost to her panty line, and her legs were open. And I was like, where's the manager? So they went and got the manager. Why is this picture here? We're in a preteen department. Why are you advertising a girl in a skirt up to her underwear with her legs open? I remember writing a letter to Kaufman's. Kaufman's went out of business. I'd like to think I had something to do with it, but I probably can't take the credit. My point is, if we don't like the images that are portrayed on TV, go straight to the sponsors. All you have to do, we can Google everything. See who those commercials are. Who's paying for this show? Some people didn't like some of the images on the Grammys. If you write the sponsors, follow the money. We don't have to be held hostage to our children, our girls being sexualized before they're 10 years old. It's
Thank you so
ridiculous.
thank you so much, Janice. We have run out of time, but it's so very important. I am going to bring you back so that we can talk about this some more, because this is really something that we as women, especially with moms, grandmas, aunts, something that we should really pay attention to. I want to thank you so very, very much for
Having me.
enlightening us on what we can do as
Yes.
individuals to help our teenage girls.
Thank you
I
so much for having me. Thank you for bringing this to the public light. You rock, and you are not sticks, girl. They all want to be you now.
want to be sticks again.
You were great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Janice.
to everyone who commented. Your questions and your comments were right on point. We appreciate it. God
Nancy
bless
Jones says, well done. Ruby Jones said that was powerful.
you. Thank
Sandy Barney Ennis says, excellent show and informative. And I agree with you. Thank you so much, Janice. You have a beautiful
you.
rest
Bye.
of
Take care.
your day. Bye bye.
Thank you.
I'm back. And this was really informative and powerful. And I didn't put her contact information because she is overwhelmed actually with clients and with moms really reaching her and wanting to become clients because of their teenage daughters. So I hope that everyone who is listening that and watching, that you got some valuable information and that you will be proactive in saving our teenage girls. In the meantime, remember, relationships are important, relationships matter, and there are all kinds of relationship matters. See you again next week. Bye bye.